30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
'Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Morning again. This is Jonathan Small, host and producer of Face to Face. Face to Face is one of two different programs, and I have the pleasure of hosting and producing live every single week at AccessTV.org studio. Face to Face is a show that's designed to ask the guests the hard questions and give you, the viewers, the answers and information that you deserve to know. This morning on the Face to Face show, we have a well-known civil rights activist. He has fought for many different issues locally in his home state and also throughout the nation. He brings a lot of years' experience to many different causes that's relevant towards society. And it's our pleasure to have this special guest this morning on the AccessTV.org network. The guest this morning is no other than the chairman, founder of the People's Organization for Progress, based out of Newark, New Jersey, no other than Lawrence Hamm. Good morning, Lawrence. How are you doing?
Good morning, Jonathan. I'm fine, and thank you for inviting me on your show.
It's our pleasure, Lawrence, and I look forward for this interview. Lawrence, would you like to let people know a little bit about yourself and background briefly before we get into our main topics of discussion?
Well, I was raised in New Jersey, in Newark, New Jersey, product of Newark Public Schools. For those who know, South 17th Street School and Arts High School. My activism began when I was in high school, when I was a senior in high school, and it led to my appointment to the Newark Board of Education at the age of 17. And I think I still hold the national record for the youngest appointed school board member in the history of the United States. I attended and graduated Princeton University, returned to Newark, New Jersey in 1980, founded several organizations, including the one which people probably most associate with me, the People's Organization for Progress, which was founded in 1982. POP is a grassroots all-volunteer organization that fights for racial, social, economic justice, and peace. And as you said in your introduction, Jonathan, we've dealt with the broad spectrum of issues that affect urban communities in New Jersey and across the nation.
Now, Lawrence, Newark is the largest city in New Jersey population-wise. I'm not sure about size-wise geographically, but definitely population-wise. It's very close to New York City. It has sort of a mixed reputation throughout the nation. It gets some negative views towards crime and poverty, but then it gets some positive reviews towards, let's say, Newark International Airport, its proximity to Manhattan. It has a strong government downtown center. Former Mayor Cory Booker. You have a lot of popular people like Whitney Houston, Marvelous Marvin Hagler were both born in Newark. So, Your take as growing up in Newark from your stage, what type of city would you say Newark, New Jersey consists of?
Well, Newark is a dynamic urban area. It's a very old city.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably as old as the state itself. Remember, New Jersey and New York originally were part of New Amsterdam. It was a Dutch colony founded more than 350 years ago. And after the war between the Dutch and between Britain and the Netherlands lost, and Britain gained control of many colonies that the Netherlands had held. And one of those was New Amsterdam. And New Amsterdam on one side of the river became New Jersey. Jersey is a English city, and the other side became New York. York is an English city. And so Newark is an old city with a rich history. The colony was founded in 1620. By 1625, enslaved African people were here in the Dutch and then English colony. So African Americans have been in New Jersey and in Newark for as long as these entities have existed. In fact, we played a very dynamic role in the development. New Jersey, the United States wouldn't be what it is today. New Jersey wouldn't be what it is today had it not been for the stolen labor from the enslaved African people that played a significant role in the development of the economy, industry, commerce of the state. So it has a long history. You know, New Jersey has a mixed history too. Um, New Jersey was the slave state of the North,
Mm-hmm.
and slavery existed throughout the state and existed in Newark, you know, and many of the other cities in New Jersey. Um, it took the Civil War to bring enslavement to an end, but it's very interesting. New Jersey didn't do so willingly, although New Jersey was a part of the Union and was in the North. Lincoln didn't win New Jersey in 1860. He didn't win it in 1864. When Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, the state legislature of New Jersey nullified Lincoln's power to emancipate enslaved people in this state. It took the Civil War and the passage of the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery. It took a three-fourths vote of the state. It took three-fourths of the state to ratify the Constitution. 27 states. New Jersey was not in the 27 state majority needed to pass the 13th Amendment. So its relationship to African Americans has always been one of tension and one of challenge. Um, African Americans were here, as I said, from the beginning, but after the Civil War, there was significant migration of Black people from the South to the North. And so the African American population in New Jersey began to grow significantly after the Civil War and into the 20th century. New Jersey is an interesting state. There are over 500 municipalities in this state. That's a lot of municipalities for a small state like New Jersey. And one of the reasons we have so many municipalities is because many of those municipalities were part, for instance, Newark actually held many of the municipalities that surround it. But a lot of these municipalities in the late 19th century split off because they wanted to be segregated. They wanted to be all white cities and towns. And that's one of the reasons we have so many municipalities in the state of New Jersey today. And the civil rights struggle went on in earnest in New Jersey. Many people know like the national history, but there was very much a local civil rights movement in New Jersey and the civil rights fight. Some of the oldest chapters of the NAACP literally were founded the year of and the year after the national founding of the NAACP. So there's a rich there's a long and rich history of struggle for racial and social justice in this state. And of course, many people know about that chapter that happened in the 1960s. The
Excuse
current
me.
mayor, yes,
Excuse me, Lord,
go
but
ahead.
before you get to that part, I do have some other questions I wanted to
Okay,
ask you.
go
I mean,
ahead.
I
I'm
definitely
sorry.
appreciate your historical background of Newark and New Jersey. But let's get towards some of, you mentioned something about the black people from the South migrating to New Jersey and Newark.
Hmm.
What about this Anheuser-Busch factory that was established in Newark? That seemed to play like a strong economic engine. Was that like a job market that many people were able to get employed, graduating high school,
Yes.
entering the labor
Well,
market?
Newark, yes, Newark was an industrial hub.
Hmm.
Initially, it was an agricultural area. Believe it or not, parts of downtown Newark was once farmland.
Hmm.
But Newark became, after the Civil War, uh, began to become an industrial power, really reaching its peak in the probably in the 1930s. Newark, the highest population it had was over a 500,000 at one point. But and you had industries like you had fact Anheuser-Busch
Hmm.
was one, Engelhart Industries. Many people got jobs in surrounding auto plants in other parts of the, well, close to Newark. But there were many industries in New Jersey,
Hmm.
many industries in Newark.
Right.
But see, here's the thing. A lot of people will say, well, they moved out during the riots. The divestment of industry uh, in Newark actually started before World War II,
Hmm.
believe it or not. When land values changed, the owners of those industries moved to municipalities where they wouldn't have to pay higher property tax rates. Remember, they want to make money.
Hmm.
And if they have to pay high taxes, it cuts into their property tax, it cuts into their profit rate. And so they began to move out. That outward migration from Newark actually began in the 1930s. You can actually go in the library and look at business magazines and see articles about that occurring as early as the 1930s and through the 40s. So the outward movement of commerce and industry actually begins much earlier than people think. So,
Okay.
but yes, the answer to your question is yes.
Hmm.
My stepfather worked for Engelhart Industries,
Hmm.
which was in Newark, and I actually worked with people who were fighting to form a union. There were black people working for Anheuser-Busch, and in the early 1970s, they were fighting to form a union,
Hmm.
at that time. So I'm a little bit familiar with that story.
Well, I mean, I know the riots in '67, and we're going to get into that heavily a little bit later in the show.
Hmm.
But one thing kind of, I guess, surprises me, or it may not shock me. When you look at a
Hmm.
city like Newark, you have some strong economic companies. I believe Panasonic is located in Newark. You have Newark International Airport. As I mentioned, you have Anheuser-Busch. You have a lot of
Port
government.
Newark, Port Newark.
Port Newark. So I'm
Hmm.
saying to myself, and I want to ask you this question: with all of those strong economic structures that you have in Newark or the greater Essex County area, what is contributing towards, let's say, the high unemployment, the underemployment, the poverty, the distress in some of your inner cities areas of Newark? Is there no link from high school like it used to be that you can graduate high school and enter the labor market like it was during the breweries and the factories that you see is
Right,
contributing to some of the
right,
economic
right,
disparities?
right. Well, remember this is the point I was trying to make earlier,
Mm-hmm.
that the economic distress did not start in the 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
It did not start with the riots. The outward flow of industry, for instance, you have some industries, some commerce that never left.
Mm-hmm.
Anheuser-Busch is still there on Route 1, but it's not what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Prudential is still in Newark.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of other factories have moved out. A lot of other industries have moved out. As I said, some of them started moving out before and after World War II.
Mm-hmm.
It continued through the 60s. And one could make an argument that there might have been an acceleration after the uprising in 1967. So there was a time, for instance, you could graduate from high school and you could get a job, let's say, at GM in Linden. Linden is only minutes away from Newark.
Mm-hmm.
And many African Americans did go and get jobs in the auto industry. And the auto industry became a path to the middle class for many. You could get a job at Ford Mawa. You could get a job at the post office. Believe it or not, the post office and civil service were paths to the middle class. But many of those paths have been closed.
Mm-hmm.
GM and Linden closed down. Ford Mawa closed down. If they didn't close down, they drastically reduced their output. So a lot of the job market that was here, let's say in the 50s, because that period of economic boom was from the end of World War II basically to 1972.
Mm-hmm.
That was the period of the economic miracle of the United States. And it was during that period when, if you just had a high school diploma, maybe you didn't have a high school diploma, you could go and get a job like my stepfather did at Engelhard Industries, and you could make a good living.
Mm-hmm.
You could make a living. You could buy a house. You could own a car. You could send your kids to college. But that economic prosperity began to decline after 1972. I could make a strong argument for the fact that the United States began to deindustrialize after that period.
Mm-hmm.
And by the mid 70s, you had the phenomenon called runaway shops. Now that's what we called it in the mid to late 1970s. Today, they call it globalization.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the industries, a lot of the manufacturing industries left the United States and went to other countries where they could pay their workers 25 cents an hour or $1 an hour. No, literally, this is not metaphor. This is actually what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so this deindustrialization took jobs that might have been available to folks here in this country and took them overseas where they could basically pay people slave wages.
Mm-hmm.
And that has continued. I mean, isn't that one of the reasons why China has become the economic powerhouse
right.
of the 21st century?
Right.
Because all of our industry went, not all, but a lot of our industry went to China. I mean, there's very little substantially that the United States manufactures today compared to what we manufactured after World War II.
Okay, well, Lawrence, mm-hmm. I do understand this is a national issue of deindustrialization throughout the country, how manufacturers have all changed, how they do the operation. I do want to kind of still keep it centered towards this Newark, New Jersey, Essex County area directly, but we can also talk indirectly about the country as a whole too. But one thing Newark has, from what I understand, you have a strong government structure. If you want to get into a racial tone, Newark is the majority black city. Its second population, I believe, is Hispanic. You want to say brown. So you have, and I think your city government represents the makeup of the city. I mean, you have a very strong black government structure. But one thing people have always tried to do in the United States, and let's see if Newark fits into this category, is this belief is if you can have political empowerment, it could translate into economic empowerment. My first question to you, does Newark, New Jersey, let's say, have black political empowerment? And has it translated into economic empowerment?
Well, certainly Newark has black political representation.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Newark when Newark was a kind of apartheid city.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that the city's population was majority black as early as 1960.
Mm-hmm.
It was in 1960 when Irvine Turner became the first black elected municipal official. The first black city council person was Irvin Turner, and he was elected in 1960. That's who Irvin Turner Boulevard is named after. And so there was the rebellion of Ken Gibson tried to run for mayor in 1966, did not get elected. Then there was the rebellion of 1967. I think that was a benchmark because it helped to transform people's political consciousness because, there was belief among some, not among all, but among some people that, a black man couldn't run a city, and Gibson tried to run 66, didn't get elected. But after 1967, after the impact of the civil rights movement, after the advent of the Black Power movement, there was a change in thinking, and Gibson became the first black mayor in 1970. So Newark has had a black mayor since 1970. Newark did not gain a majority black city council until 1974.
Mm-hmm.
So it has had control. Black people have basically had significant control of municipal government since 1974, when we got a majority black city council. The question is, has that translated into economic power? Well, the truth is that during the 60s and 70s, because of the civil rights movement, and this had very much had a local impact. I mean, people think of the civil rights movement as a national phenomenon, but the passage of the Civil Rights Act, which outlawed racial discrimination, and the passage of the Voting Rights Act, which made it possible for black people to vote. Remember, this voter suppression didn't just exist in the South, it also existed in the North. So people use those things. And in Newark, New Jersey, there was a growth of the black middle class as a result of that. Like, I know just anecdotally, right? You go downtown, you went to Howard Savings Bank, there were no black tellers down there. There were no black bank managers. After 1967, that changed. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult for anybody to get a job at Prudential doing anything other than janitorial work. After 1967, that changed. So there was some change. But the question is, did that change the condition of the majority of black people?
Right.
And one could make an argument that it did not. Okay. That it did benefit folks who became part of the black middle class or who were already on that upward slope toward economic prosperity. But the poverty rate in Newark has fundamentally remained the same. In some periods, it has gone lower. In some periods, it's gone higher. But it's basically been around what it is today. And that has a lot to do, not just with Newark, but it has a lot to do with how the economy functions and how the political system and the economic system work together, work in tandem to produce this outcome.
Yeah. Well, truthfully, the reason why I kind of was reaching out to you to talk about Newark, New Jersey, or anyone that I could find, when I heard over the weekend that you had somewhat of a mass shooting in Newark that left a 10-year-old boy killed. Very unfortunate.
Very, very grievous.
Right.
Very unfortunate.
And then it was like 3 other people were shot. I don't know if they were critically wounded, but to lose a life of a 10-year-old child and a 21-year-old woman, just basically going home or going someplace. And then you get these reports that, and this could be valid and true, that crime and homicides have dropped dramatically in Newark over the past 3 to 5 years. I mean, you had records at one time where you had over 100 homicides in New York, so it's extremely lower. But then I look at another report about a 2-year-old child um, falling out of a 20-story building, and something is telling me, despite all of these positive signs about crime is being reduced and Newark is becoming a safer city or a comeback city, something got to still be drastically wrong in a city. And I know accidents can happen. I'm not going to say I have all of the information, but when a child just falls out of a window, I'm looking at the condition of that building. There might have been some structural problems. Is this related towards poverty, despair, and people left behind to fend for themselves, or are there some other factors when you hear these type of horrific incidents in Newark?
Well, because things are multifaceted, two things can be true at one time. I mean, first of all, my condolences go out to the families of the victims in that latest shooting. We all hurt when children are killed or when anyone is killed needlessly, you know. So my condolences and sympathies go out to the family. So two things can be true. Crime has gone down nationally and has been on the decline in the country for at least 5 or more years. There's a national downward trend in crime. And crime has gone down in Newark.
Right.
That's true. But when you say statistically that crime has declined, that is something that we can say is positive, right? You'd rather have a homicide rate that's, let's say, 30% rather than 60%, right?
Yes.
But when you say there's been a decline, that doesn't mean it has been eliminated. When you say there's a decline in crime, that means that there are fewer homicides than you had before. But that doesn't mean that there aren't any homicides.
Right.
And this is what we have to keep in mind, that crime doesn't disappear, for a host of reasons, including people's willingness to try to do whatever is possible to reduce the crime rate. It does decline, but it doesn't disappear. There's not a city in this country that doesn't have some degree of crime.
Right.
Now, they have greater or lesser degrees of crime based on what their policies are to address the issue of crime. That's one side of the ledger. But the other side of the ledger is the socioeconomic condition of the people that live in those areas. It is true to say that crime is the handmaid of poverty. But to say that does not mean that you can't do anything to, in fact, bring down the rate of crime.
Right.
And this is what the administrations of cities like Newark and Baltimore that have seen a decline in crime, despite whatever Trump is saying. Trump is using crime as a reason to place troops in these cities because he wants to repress these populations with the ultimate objective of either canceling elections or suppressing voter turnout so that he can hold on to power because he doesn't want to give up power. But, there have been strategies that have been used in Baltimore, in Newark, and other cities that have shown to have had an impact on crime. It's brought in some areas, it has brought certain types of crime down. In other areas, not as much success. But some success has been made. But you have to keep in mind, because we say we've had success in this area, does not mean the problem is eliminated.
Right.
And this is my personal belief, I believe that we will always have these high levels of crime as long as we have high levels of poverty. And as long as we don't take significant action to reduce the flow of illegal weapons and illegal drugs into our urban areas. I believe if we could deal with those two issues effectively, the flow of illegal drugs and illegal weapons, that it would have a major impact in terms of crime reduction in our urban areas. I mean, we don't have any gun manufacturing plants in Newark, in Baltimore, in Camden, in Trenton. Where are these guns coming from?
Right.
And are these people who manufacture guns being held liable, like, say, like the Sackler family is being held liable for the opioid epidemic? They're being forced to pay billions in restitution for the impact of the products manufactured by the industries they own on the population. But we don't have that in the United States.
Right. But
we in fact, we have laws that actually prevent us from doing research on this problem.
Right.
Can you imagine that?
But see, Lawrence, I've always heard this saying that people say in the inner cities that we don't make the drugs, we don't make the guns. Some of what you just expressing now, but we have the drug market, we have the drug stores, we have the places where people can come in, purchase the drugs, get illegal guns, have a lot of other illegal activity take place that I don't think would be allowed in affluent residential suburbs. So
this is not true. But this is not true. The highest rate of drug use in the United States, the highest degree of drug use, is among white people. It's not among black people.
Right. But where are
Black
they?
people, listen, black people use drugs, yes. But the highest rates of drug use are among white people.
That's true.
All you have to do is reference FBI reports on this. FBI reports on homicide in the United States and on illegal drug use and arrests, and you'll see that white people use more drugs than black people. If the illegal drug market had to depend just on black folks, it would collapse. See, this is the trick we can't fall into. Do black people have crime? Yes, we have crime. Do we commit crime? But see, what they do is they put a black face on crime. When you look at those FBI reports, you see that the highest numbers of men committing crime, committing murder, are white men, not black men.
Right.
The rate of mass shootings,
that's true,
is like almost 90% white men.
Right. Right.
And we can't fall into the trap of letting them put a black face on crime, because once you do that, what's the next step? The next step is a kind of philosophical formulation that happens in your mind. You begin to think that somehow black people are inherently prone to commit crime.
Right.
That there's something, and that's a racist idea.
Right.
That's a racist idea. Yes. Do we commit crime? Yes, we do. But when you look at what country is the greatest user of drugs in the world today? It's the United States.
Yes, the United States. But see, one thing I do want to clarify, and I'm glad you brought this part up. Yes, white people are using drugs. They're dying over drug overdoses more than any other race of people. But I think the concern would still, people would say, where are the drugs being bought at? Who's fighting over the drug turf? Is that taking place still in inner city Newark?
Yes, that is taking place. Yes. Is there turf? Are there gangs that sell drugs? Yes. Are they fighting over turf? Yes. Right. Is that right? No. Is it wrong? Yes. Should we do something about it? Yes. Are people trying to do something about it? Yes. But your analysis is not complete unless you go to the root cause. You have to deal with the manifestation, what you can see, what's on top. But you also have to go to the root cause. You know, and that's what we don't do. And it's just like with this latest thing with SNAP, right? Where Trump is holding back the SNAP money, letting people starve in this country. while they give money to Argentina, $40 billion, but they don't want to put forward the $40 billion for the SNAP program. You would think, listening to the pundits and people on TV, that the majority of SNAP recipients are black.
Right.
It's not true.
It's
the
white.
majority of SNAP recipients are white, and they are in red states controlled by Republicans.
Right.
So it's so important that we have a balanced analysis. We have to look at the manifestation of the problem, what is actually going on around us in our neighborhoods, but we also have to look at the root of the problem. You know, and if you don't have both, your analysis is going to be wanting. And you're not going to have a solution that will be a lasting solution.
But see, here's the bitter pill that you have to still swallow while we're trying to say, okay, where the root of the problem is coming from. And you're right. If you have a poverty problem, you need a strategic plan to fix the poverty problem. If you have guns, illegal guns, you have to have a strategic plan to either prevent people from getting access to illegal guns or do something beyond the ordinarily to keep the gun flows from being into the hands of the wrong people. But I think at the same time, when people throughout the news or people who are looking at Newark, New Jersey, saying, I'm hearing one report that crime is coming down. That's an excellent assumption. That's facts. The numbers speak for themselves. I believe you've had 21 homicides so far in 2025. But when you see that video and you see a child and people walking and they're being gunned down, that's going to make anybody think twice about, do I really want to come into Newark? Do I really want to invest in Newark?
Right.
I mean,
and we should do, brother. I agree with you. There's no disagreement here. I think what it is a difference in approach.
Yes.
If my neighbor is being killed, I'm not going to sit and wait around. I'm going to try to do something about it, right?
Right.
We have to do something. We have agency. We have efficacy. That's the whole reason why people would run for office, because they'll say that I want to do something about this problem. So we must take action. That's why I love the anti-violence groups that exist in Newark. And I've seen the creation of these groups when they were like all volunteer, the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition. See, people don't see that in the news. They will see the shooting, or they will read about the murder of the 2-year-old child. They won't read about the people who came out literally the same day that the shooting occurred. And held a vigil in that community at the very spot where the people was killed. To try to send out the message to our community that we can't kill each other like this. The killing is wrong. That we shouldn't do this. That it hurts the community in 100 ways, not just economically. They don't see that part. The people of Newark do not countenance or support criminal behavior. And they have been campaigning against it for decades. I know this because my own organization, the People's Organization, we were created we were founded in 1982. By the mid-80s, we were having forums against drugs, crime, and violence in our community. In fact, the first forum we had was at the Oak Street Baptist Church in East Orange, I think. So there have been anti-violence groups in this city, in the city of Newark, and in other cities. It's not just Newark.
Right.
There's an anti-violence group in Trenton. There's an anti-violence group in Camden. Black people are doing whatever they can, either on a voluntary basis as citizens or through law enforcement, through the cities that we control, to try to fight crime. And I would challenge anybody who says that people somehow support this or don't care or lackadaisical, when I know I wasn't at that vigil, but I saw it, the vigil that they had after the 2-year-old was killed. And that happened, if not the same day, the very next day. So people do not countenance, do not support this. And we have to do whatever we can as individuals, as organizations, as institutions, the churches, the synagogues, the mosques, whatever we can to fight crime. But we do need government policy too. For instance, one of the reasons why there are so many illegal weapons in urban areas is because the federal government reduced the amount of money that was allocated for drug interdiction. And that reduction has been going on since the 80s.
Right.
I mean, is it any small wonder? But people know where the guns are coming. They're coming up 95.
Yeah, I-95. That's a corridor.
It ain't no secret.
Right.
You know, but you have to have the tools. You have to have the tools to fight crime in that way. And you also have to have an approach. You have to have it at both ends. You have to have it at the end where you directly confront and fight crime. And you have to have at the other end to try to change the conditions that would make someone commit crime.
And that's the root cause when you start to get to those two areas that you just mentioned, change the conditions that's going to make someone want to commit crime.
Right.
I could definitely tell you're very passionate. I mean, I've labeled you you are a civil rights activist, and you're well known locally, but I think you're well connected throughout the country as well. We are kind of running down on time. We didn't even really talk about the 67 riots, but I think it might have even been better that we talked about what we were talking about towards the end, about the root causes and how do you go about. And also, I would like to also look at that mass shooting. I think there were 2 arrests yesterday. I don't know if that's everybody that was involved in the shootings, but I think when you see the press conference, you see the city government officials all coming together, at least you're trying to get the perpetrators off of the street so they won't do that again. And I think that's the short-term solution. The long-term, I think, is going to be much more difficult to remove the elements that's contributing or allowing crime to run havoc. But you brought off a lot of passions particularly towards the end of the show, and it came across strongly, and I definitely respect you for what you believe in. As we're running out of time pretty much for this particular segment, I like to always ask the guests if there's any last words, any last things that you would like for people to know about yourself or what you're currently doing or planning to do. Feel free to express yourself.
Well, right now, one of my main concerns, and it's not just my personal concern of the People's Organization for Progress, is the movement toward fascism in this country. That the democratic institutions and democratic processes are being undermined. Now, this didn't just start with the Trump administration. Believe me, this has been going on for decades. In fact, if you go back to the founding of the country, you know, there was great debate and struggle between those who founded the country between whether or not the United States should be a monarchy or a constitutional republic, whether or not we should have a king or dictator, or whether or not we should have Congress elected by the people. This was a great struggle. One could make an argument that the period of that fascism grows out of the era of enslavement. I mean, what is enslavement except the denial of all democratic rights to a group of people who are enslaved? But we face a very dangerous situation in the United States today. There was an attempt to overthrow the government on January 6th. It was more than just an attempt to nullify an election. It was an attempt to overthrow the government. And now the person that was the leader of the attempted overthrow is the president again, and has pardoned 1,500 people that were involved in the attempted overthrow. And believe me, if they tried it once, they're going to try it again. So my message to people is use your vote. Vote in every election, whether it's a school board election, a district leader election, whether it's election for Congress, a Senate, or president, whatever. Use the vote. If the vote wasn't important, they wouldn't try to take it away from us. So these upcoming midterm elections are very important, and the presidential election that will follow, very important. So we need to use our votes and use everything at our disposal: voting, marching, protesting, boycotting, petitioning, writing letters, whatever it is that we can do to express dissent and the desire to take this country in a better direction than we're going now. We need to do it. The situation is very urgent, and we need all hands on deck. Thank you.
All right, Lawrence, those words are well taken. A very positive, important way to end this particular segment of the Face to Face Talk Show. I definitely appreciate you being available under short notice. I don't take that for granted. And definitely for you to keep up the good work with what you're doing with your organization and what you're also fighting for as an individual. And look forward to possibly having you back again on the Face to Face Public Affairs Television Online Talk Show.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
No problem. All right. Okay, this is Jonathan Small. I had just enjoyed hosting this edition of the Face to Face Public Affairs Television Online Talk Show with a very special guest. He is the chairman, founder of the People's Organization for Progress, based out of Newark, New Jersey, no other than Lawrence Hamm. And he came across very accurate, very passionate. He definitely believes in what he is saying. He knows he has his facts and information in order. And that's always real important when you are doing an interview like this. Already have a All About You biographical television online talk show booked for next week. Look forward to seeing you again if it's God's wills. And to all of the people out there, have a very blessed day and keep the faith. Thank you.